Music. It's everywhere. On your phone, in the elevator, if it's fancy enough, in your mall, in your head, and in your video game. Some treat music as white noise. It's there to fill in the silence of what's happening in the moment or around you, and in this case, background music for video games. Hence why sometimes video game music is interchangeably called BGM. Over the years, however, as video games have evolved and developed, be it through graphics, gameplay, acting, story, so too has music. There are tracks that are very iconic, from FF7's One Winged Angel to Warcraft's O Thanagor, and nowadays, something like Baldur's Gate 3's main theme. Just hearing the track alone, when it resonates with you, images of the showdown between Cloud and Sephiroth, the tragedy of Arthas, booting up Baldur's Gate 3 for the first time, before being locked in on Act 1 for 100 hours, before starting your second playthrough, before you even started Act 2. Music is truly a very powerful tool. Now sometimes, however, music alone can tell a story without necessarily bringing a specific scene or moment from a game when you hear it. Listening to it alone, you already understand the song's message, the emotions, the setting, the representation, and the living notes in this immersive language that we call music. It paints a picture for us by speaking to us in notes. Let's take, for example, Final Fantasy X's Servant of the Mountain, known commonly as the theme of Mount Gagazet. It is what plays when you first arrive in Mount Gagazet, and also during the confrontation of Yuna with the Ronso leader in Mount Gagazet. It is also the theme of Kimahri's fight against Biran and Yenke. The track alone, however, does a really good job, of expressing all that just through its notes, instruments, overall pacing, and intentional theming with its track. The melancholic track at the beginning, if compared to, say, the themes of Luca, which have a very modern track, it sounds like a city of technology, right? But this track in particular, with its cello, drums, very traditional and old instruments, this represents its people and the place itself, Mount Gagazet. The people are very traditional, and Mount Gagazet itself as an area is very, very old. As the cello swells, it also exudes power, authority, unflinching and unwavering tenacity. This power, authority, this tenacity, it represents the Ronso, their beliefs, their traditions, and the very mountain they preside in. As the drums leave the scene, a gentle bunch of notes pierces the vibration of the absence of the drums, almost in retaliation of the intimidating and unyielding cello. This invader, with its innocent and almost childlike sound, bounces alongside the very slow, the smooth walking tempo of the cello. Now, the cello here represents the servants of the mountain, the Ronso, while the new element in the mix represents Kimahri, who is seen as a runt compared to the likes of Biran and Yenke. He is shorter, he has a broken horn, and throughout the campaign so far, he has failed several times as a guardian, be it due to Yuna's kidnapping in Luca, her kidnapping again on the way to crossing the Moonflow, and depending on how you play, Kimahri also loses to Tidus, who is, by the way, a novice guardian and is more of a blitzer than a fighter at that point. Now the cello keeps going, but the loud and vibrant new sound seems to overwhelm it. But there is a harmony in that clash. It's not forcefully doing so. Kimahri prides himself as a warrior amongst the Ronso, but as Yuna's guardian, her safety takes precedence. even if it means raising a spear against Yevon and even his people. As the drums return, its beat complements the unyielding cello and the challenger in the song, but despite this conflict, harmony is what we hear. It is indicative as well of Yuna's resolve. She fights for the people of Spira, even if she must raise her staff against Yevon, and she will do so, especially when the Yevon she knows is not what it really is. She is branded a traitor, and despite that, she doesn't go into hiding or exile for her own safety. No, she continues her pilgrimage, knowing that her ultimate demise is what awaits her. And people may not even forgive her transgressions even if she brings the calm. Despite all that, she presses on, unwaveringly, unyieldingly. Despite his own people standing against him, Kimahri raises his spear so that his summoner can continue, and also to fulfill a promise to Auron, to guard Yuna with his life. Neither Yuna nor Kimahri have any ill intent towards Yevon or the Ronso respectively, but their leaders, beliefs, and views are at odds, but its people are still innocent. This is why the melody that interferes is not forceful, it's very gentle. The very young, childlike musical instrument, I don't know what it's called, I sincerely apologize. It does reflect both the naivety and the young spirit of Yuna and Kimahri. It is loud, but it's not overbearing. It doesn't walk alongside the same tempo with the rest of the song, but it doesn't go ahead or behind it. It bounces alongside. Now, I know that is a lot to process, but that is one track. While although it is quite popular, it is not among the most played or popular tracks of Final Fantasy X. It still does a bang-up job of telling you a story without a single word ever spoken, just using its own language, sound. Now, even before the PS2 era, games did focus a lot on music as a way to compensate for the lack of graphical fidelity. The Resident Evil games are a very good example of this. Nothing is more iconic in these games in terms of music than their save themes, and arguably the most iconic one is Resident Evil 3. Without watching a cutscene or playing a minute of the game, an RE fan can immediately decipher the story being told in RE3's save room theme, Free from Fear. And even if you have never touched a Resident Evil game, you can tell immediately that something is not right. Something is off with this track. Because when you hear the title, Free from Fear, you will probably have this impression, oh, it's very hopeful, it's very optimistic. But the first beat drop is already a very imposing, scary, and intimidating piano note. It's just one beat, but it echoes. It stays there for a long time. This represents Nemesis' footsteps, piercing the loud silence of Raccoon City as Jill tries to make her escape. The name of the track alone is intriguing. Jill is not free from danger or death, which is what has surrounded the city, but fear. She has escaped death several times in the mansion incident, but what seems to catch up until now is fear. The fear of losing her remaining friends like Chris, Barry, and Brad, like she lost many of her friends from Alpha and Bravo team. That fear haunts her yet again. This time, that fear has manifested in the form of Nemesis. The note that represents Nemesis never changes. It is almost always very slow, very intimidating, and almost monotone, which is also very indicative of how Nemesis speaks. Stars. Stars. Is the only recognizable word that he can speak. The piano being the main instrument is not just cliche either, but theming-wise, it fits. In the mansion incident of Resident Evil 1, the musical piece that Jill gets is part of a puzzle that she can solve herself by playing the piano. Chris, on the other hand, must be assisted by Rebecca after learning how to play it in RE0 by watching Billy play.
Can you play? Oh, what was that?
My interpretation is off a little. Let me practice for a while.
The melodious and rebellious piano in this song that tries to fight the nemesis of a low piano note is Jill. It is faster in its beat compared to the singular, slow but overbearing beat. The whining instrument in the background, or rather the whining noise you hear in the background that almost sounds like it is mourning, represents Raccoon City. It cries out in pain as the Raccoon City incident escalates as every moment passes by, up until its explosive finale. But it mourns in pain and also in hope that its children, the citizens of Raccoon City, can somehow evacuate this nightmare. Hopefully the survivors can be free not from death, but fear that has now gripped the city and crippled its inhabitants. Each representing instrument has its own tempo. There is no melody, and I think this is intentional. The whining note, the whining sound is Raccoon City. It has no power over its own fate and its people. It is merely a witness. It is in terror when there is terror, hopeful when there is hope. That is why the whining noise sometimes sounds pessimistic, afraid, sometimes it sounds optimistic and hopeful. Whenever Jill's piano is not playing, the whine sounds generally more fearful, melancholic, pessimistic, being overwhelmed by Nemesis. But when Jill's piano interferes, it sounds more alive and hopeful. Nemesis's piano note always breaks the silence and interferes with the noise or the lack of noise. Whenever Jill in-game feels safe, Nemesis barges in, giving chase. Whenever Jill is chatting with Carlos about the situation, Nemesis also barges in and is right there to give chase again. All the while Raccoon City can only watch. As a final example, let's take a more upbeat and happier, albeit slightly bleak from a perspective, a track from Zenless Zone Zero, 60% Fantasy. The bass guitar in this track is always the same. It never changes at all. This represents the city of New Eridu. The drum that pops in soon after the song starts represents the people living in it, and in particular, the civilians. The whining sound that interferes messes with the harmony that the drums and the bass guitar has formed, represents the hollows and the ethereals. Now, as you know, the hollows and the ethereals are basically a huge threat and generally do interfere with the everyday lives of the citizens of New Eridu. It has gaps, unlike the drums and the bass guitar, and this is because the people that live in New Eridu, in a sense, are disconnected and are trying to distance themselves from the hollow and its ethereals, which is why the whining sound has very short but noticeable gaps. And just like these gaps, right? These hollows and ethereals, in a sense, are also in hiding. That's why they are not consistently or constantly there, so to speak. And then the melodious electronic guitar joins in with the bass guitar. This electronic guitar represents the Proxies and the Hollow Raiders. Whenever they are in play, the whining sound is absent, as they have been gated, blocked, and defeated in some cases by the ever-powerful team synergy of Hollow Raiders or agents and the Proxies. Your drums, you notice, are also gone, because this electronic guitar is like a dark knight. They are vigilantes and do their good deeds and work away from the eyes of everyday people of New Eridu, and in particular the authorities. So when the drums return, the solo of the guitar tries to mask itself with the bass guitar's melody, representative of how these Proxies and Hollow Raiders are also citizens of New Eridu. When they are not living the life of a Proxy and a Hollow Raider, they are living their everyday lives, as you can see with Bell and Wise. Now, as the Whine returns, the rebellious fighting spirit of the electric guitar swells, signaling the start of a battle between the agents and their Proxies against the Hollow and its ethereals to protect the civilians, the citizens, and New Eridu from the threat. Now, when the Whine is gone, the storm has basically dissipated. The battle has ended. The electric guitar transforms into a happy piano, adding harmony of the already existing partners since the beginning, which is the drums and the bass guitar, giving a very triumphant and victory melody and tune, overpowering the Whine that tries to fight back as it returns again. And don't forget that despite the drums, the electric guitar, piano, and the whining tune changing throughout the song, the first set of notes that the bass guitar does remains constant throughout the entire song, as New Eridu does amidst the chaos and peace that its people live every day. New Eridu just keeps going on. Isn't music such a wonderful thing? It really is more than just white noise or background music or a battle or character theme. Just like sound, music is a language, and it wants to tell you something. Sometimes it tells you about the legendary threat and power of Sephiroth. Or maybe it wants you to make sure that you do not forget the Ardanian troops, how they do things, and that their enemies are done. Or maybe it wants to tell you that the bell has tolled, the door to safety is shut, and there is no turning back. There are threats within and outside the walls of a compound you think is safe, and that all you can do is pick yourself up and with every ounce of strength in your body, move forward, hoping that the path ahead leads to your salvation and not your demise. Thank you so much, Foxtrots, for watching and hearing me in painfully pedantic manner talk about something I particularly love, video game music. I hope this helps you appreciate video game music in a different light and perspective, and music in general. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Till then, please leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, share your thoughts in the comment section, and keep on gaming, everyone.